The hammering of a fist against the door feels like a nail being pounded into my head. Once, twice, 3 times. I let out a long, annoyed breath and bear it while pressing my eyelids shut, fervently hoping for whoever it is to just go away. I feel pretty damn awful. My face feels like it's cast out of lead and my arms feel heavy and I feel queasy. It's been like this since I woke up half an hour ago and I can't summon the energy to pick myself up out of bed. So this is why they call it a hangover. One of the many reasons I don't understand why anybody bothers with that garbage, but I wonder if perhaps that's the best treatment for teenagers who desperately want to try drinking as a way to feel like an adult. Considering how unpleasant this is, it's not something I want to repeat. A series of thumps rings out again, reverberating around the small room. I wish they'd just give up already. I have no intention of getting out of the bed for them. Seconds pass, turning to minutes. Since no more knocks are coming from the door, whoever it was must have left. Thank goodness. Looking to my clock, the time when I really think I really should think about getting dressed and ready for class is approaching. I don't think I can manage it though. I hate cutting class, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get much done at this rate. I can tell I look like a mess without needing to look in the mirror to confirm it, too. The morning rush is enough to give me enough time to stand outside of my classroom for a little while without looking too suspicious. I hope that Muda doesn't ask any awkward questions about my not attending school yesterday. I was sick. Not much is true. It's just the reasons for it that I have to hide. Oh, so we jumped... I thought he went ahead anyway. We jumped ahead a day. Confident I can get by with a tactical omission of certain truths, I stride into the classroom doing my best to appear normal. The instant I open the door and take a single step in, I can feel a dozen eyes looking at me. There's no way I'm imagining this. They're not even making any attempt to hide it. My eyes take a quick sweep around the classroom and I spot Hanako. We make eye contact momentarily before she looks down and stares very hard at her desk. Did she spill the beans? Mudo may be okay as far as teachers go, but underage drinking on campus is not exactly something that would be taken lightly. I look to him with some trepidation. Feeling better today? Yeah, thank you. He motions for me to take my seat, my legs feeling like sticks as they carry me there. This is gonna be a long day. As soon as the lunch bell rings, I'm on my way to Hanako's desk to ask what's going on. Hanako, did you tell? She looks up at me and shakes her head. That's a big relief. It's just? Well, hello there, Hee-chan. It's nice to see you again today. Egods, it's the Drilly Girl. Oh, and she's got devious face. I grimace and turn towards the unmistakable voice coming from behind me. That was way too upbeat of tone of voice to feel comfortable, even for Misha. Misha's happy smile is nothing out of the usual. Shizune's, though, is a very bad sign. The one she wears has become notched into my brain as her "I have got you 7 ways from Sunday" smile. Hi, Shizune, Misha. You look happy to see me. Not feeling well yesterday, Hee-chan? No, I wasn't. But I'm feeling better now, at least. That's good to know, Hee-chan. Why do I get the feeling that Shizune is leading me into a trap? You sound like you're not being completely serious. Oh no, Hee-chan, we're genuinely pleased that you're all better now. Shizune is positively overflowing with happiness. There's only one reason why she would be like this. Oh no! In fact, we were quite worried about you after all. You, Hanako, and Lily were all absent from class on the same day. Yep, she has got us. So thoroughly that all I can do is sigh in defeat. I guess you have your own theories about this. Could you just kinda not tell anyone? It's a bit late for that, Hee-chan. I suppose she's right, considering the looks I got as I entered class. Still, things only seem to be at the level of vague suspicion rather than outright accusation, so we'll probably be fine. Hanako's face sinks a little further. Such attention is troublesome enough for me, let alone for her. Going by Shizune and Misha's reactions, I think they noticed this as well. Oi. Awkward Central. The only reason why we're giving you such a hard time is that you ignored us yesterday morning. Yesterday morning? Takes a while to recollect, but it's basically the same thing. What happened then, given the haze induced by the general awful state I was in at the time? Oh right, the knocking. That was you two? It was, and you left us there for ages after we'd taken all the effort of coming to your dormitory early in the morning. Sorry, I was having a problem with nausea? A problem with nausea. They're not buying it. I can't blame them. Shizune's head drops in resignation before reaching into her pockets. Something white and yellow can be seen sticking out a little. As if she pulls it out, it turns out to be an envelope with a very bright decorations on it. Ah, the letter. Since she points it towards me, I duly take it. This is what we were trying to give you, Hee-chan. You don't check your... I tune out the sound of Misha's voice as my eyes register what's written on the envelope. You know, in retrospect, you could have slid it under the door. A Wanako. I stare at the envelope for a moment before suddenly remembering that there are people around me. There's a very strange, somewhat invasive feeling about their expressions. I kind of want to be alone right now. Iwanako? It's nothing. Thank you for bringing me this, you two. I should think so, after we went through all that to get it to you. I step back and say my goodbyes. Misha theoretically pouts even as I go out the door, but Chizun and Hanako remain visibly curious about my reaction. I hope they won't interrogate me on this later. The smell of the gardens is, as always, a very pleasant sensation. Some of the most visible signs of how well-founded this school is, aside from its sheer size, are the expense and condition of the ground. Expanse. A good number of students can be seen eating lunch, chatting, and playing on the bright green lawns like a bunch of nerds. Even some of the staff is enjoying the summer here, keeping watch over the students and idly walking along the long concentrated paths. Concrete paths. I'd never seen a sight like this in my home city. On excursions, maybe, but certainly never in a school or anywhere near where I lived. Even the bench I sit on to read is warmer thanks to the summertime sun. Summertime sun. That's a song. Reminds me of why I hadn't worn the school blazer even once yet. Considering this, the sunflower and splashes of vibrant yellow coloring adorning the paper are quite appropriate for the time. If only the words written on it were as well. Here I was, thinking I'd managed to get over her, when this troublesome thing shows up. Her handwriting looks vaguely familiar at best, and only now that I see it again, I remember that she used to write in a pink pen a lot. She always was very girly, for lack of a better term. She was also quite fragile. I never knew if I liked that aspect of her or not, though, with the arrival of this letter, that question seems to have become largely moot. The letter begins with not much more than an update on the state of things going on in her life. My old class had got a good start to the school year. Many are anxious about the exams that'll be coming up in the future, etc. But in the end, it ends on a very personal, if brief, note. Feels like a bit she wrote most of the letter just to try and soften the blow from the ending. Interesting how he's approaching this letter so differently than he did the first timeline with Emmy. I wanted to express my feelings, but the right words didn't come to me. Couldn't say anything to comfort you. I'm really sorry for not being able to support you when it mattered the most, even though I like you so much. At least now I can finally be a bit more honest. But will he read it this time, or... If I could go back to those quiet days in February and March, I'd tell you not to give up on yourself. That's what I would say. Maybe you wouldn't have drifted away so far away if I had just said something. I hope you managed to come back on your own feet on your own. Not the distance between us, and now that the distance between us is also physical, it also feels more final somehow. I wonder if we'll meet again. Perhaps if it's for the best if we don't. Still, if you would like to correspond with me, by all means write me back. I'd very much like to hear about your new school and how you're doing. I wish you all the best. Sincerely, Iwanako. And so, that's that. Our relationship is over. Nice, neat, and tidy, with no ambiguity. I hadn't held on to any illusions that it could ever begin anew. The last time she visited me, neither of us said a thing, except for the one word she said that she left for the last time. Goodbye. Be that as it may, this feels more final. The capstone on an experiment that both of us tried and failed at. A loud shout draws my eyes away from the letter. It's just some students horsing around, with one of the teachers standing nearby coming over to talk to them. Are you okay? A tentative voice comes from my side. For a moment I assume it to be Hanako, but it's actually Yuko. Oh, hello Yuko. Thought you'd be in the library. She gives a cheerful smile, one quite fitting the atmosphere, and flourishes the empty wrapper of a roll in her hand. She must have had someone else covering for her while she grabbed something to eat. It reminds me that I haven't had anything to eat yet. I don't feel hungry though, and skipping one lunch won't hurt. Mind if I sit here? Sure, go ahead. I quickly slide the letter back into its envelope, slipping it inside my bag propped against the side of the bench as Yuko takes a seat. She drops the wrapper into a bin beside us. Without much else to do, I lean back and take what enjoyment I came from the sun, silently reflecting on the letter. The lush lawns, the clear blue skies, everything looks so different from the way it did back then. Even the school surroundings, from the hill on the hill it's on to the woods around it, are complete opposite to the urban scenery I remember. You know, I've lived in the countryside for so dang long, some might even say literally my entire life because I have, that man, I don't know how I would react to being in an actual legitimate city. Maybe this is what it feels like to be homesick. Then again, it's not an outright bad sensation. The feel of the area around Yamaku, while very different, is also nice. I think I could get used to it. Hey, Hisao. Yeah? You didn't answer my question from before. I wasn't gonna say anything, but you still look troubled. If you don't want to say anything, that's okay. I don't mind at all. Sorry for asking something strange like that. I don't mind. It's just I got a letter from someone I knew before I came to Yamaku. Made me think about some things. I thought I'd manage to get over most of the problems that my accident caused, but now I'm not really so sure. Kinda wish I'd never seen it. I don't think that's good, Hisao. When my boyfriend left me, he did so very suddenly and never let me know why. At first I was depressed about it, but I decided to forgive him. Boy, isn't that mildly relatable. I mean, not one-to-one, but still. I've had people just sort of vanish off the face of the earth. I still wish them well, despite the fact that they just kinda cut themselves out of my life entirely, and I never understood why. Still, you forgive him. Couldn't he have at least have talked properly with you about it? Sure would have been nice if they did that, but sometimes you don't get that kind of closure. You know, I was always one of those people that found it difficult to come close to others. In the end, I decided that I fell in love with him for a reason. He was a good person, and I think that it had been in his position, I would have probably have found it just as hard to try and talk to him. I don't really see the connection to the letter I got. I mean, how should I put this? It must have been very hard for that person to send that letter, and if they did, I think they must have thought very hard about exactly what to say. Hanako managed to write this letter and bring a final close to our relationship, something that I'd never managed to do. Whereas here I am, trying to protect and help Hanako as best as I can, especially with Lily leaving for a while. I'm not even be able to deal with my own problems. Does that make sense? She's taken my non-response and furrowed brow as doubt. She really reads faces too much, just like a certain other person. Yeah, that makes sense. The letter was just kind of a shock, really. I think I'd tried to fool myself into thinking that my life reset when I came into Yamaku, but now I'm suddenly aware that if it didn't, I'm a bit of lost about how to deal with these feelings. I think that's something I can't really help you with. Sorry. It's fine. I think being able to talk with you helped me get some things sorted out a bit better in my head. So, thank you anyway. She nods and smiles sweetly. Yuko is a nice girl, so it's a shame she's so highly strung so often. The school bell ringing out startles us both. Makes me hiccup. I was supposed to be back before the bell. Oops. She jumps off the bench and almost races off without a second word, but turns on her heel as she remembers she was talking to me just now. I'll see you later, Hisao. Cheer up, okay? I'll try to. Thanks, Yuko. Mogami River. With a quick bow, Yuko turns and leaves and begins to rush to the library. Her flight catches the curious eyes of a few passing students who are unenthusiastically trudging back to their classes after their fun. Reluctantly standing from the bench, I dust myself off and join them. Even while I walk through the gardens back to the main building, the thought of the letter in my bag doesn't stray far from my mind. Anybody out there ever been given a letter? I know I haven't. Sounds interesting. The feeling of walking through the streets is one of very deep nostalgia. While Yamaku may be like the reverse of where I lived in the past, the city at night is amazingly familiar. I've never been one to really explore a town in any capacity whatsoever. I've always been rather fond of just kind of being within my own four walls. I've always been very comfortable with that. Perhaps not the most healthy way to live, but it's the way I've gone about it. My eyes are moving constantly from the bright electronic screens glowing high in the night sky to the street lamps piercing the darkness with their light to the businessmen enjoying themselves after work and the busily taking couples on dates. Even if I didn't want to, I can't help soaking in every aspect of the city. I savor its familiarity like a sweet candy sitting on my tongue. That's especially poetic sounding, gotta say. Oh, hello. Lily is walking to my left with her cane swaying to and fro, holding onto her sister's arm for guidance while talking to her. Compared to traveling by taxi or bus, being driven by Akira in her rather nice car was a much more enjoyable experience. Oh, hello, Hanako. That's a lovely hat. Maybe not for the person on my right. While Lily was used to her sister's driving style, and I quite liked a bit of excitement, Hanako was holding very tightly to the door for most of the trip. You know what? That's fair. Everything looks so pretty at night. Hanako quickly looks down yet again as she accidentally catches someone's gaze. Yeah, it does. My answer isn't very thoughtful, since I'm distracted by so many thoughts that I find it hard to keep up on small talk. One of those distractions, aside from the city sights, is how Hanako looks. This is the first time I've seen her in something other than her school uniform or her pajamas. It gave me pause when I first saw her outfit. when we met up at the school gate. Considering how her head is lowered when people walk near us, I imagine that the hat she wears is more than a fashion statement. Yeah, it's multi-purpose. It looks nice, and it's effective at what you're trying to get accomplished. Well, initially, I was wary of Lily's plan to take us out into the city when night fell. It became obvious she had thought about this. Not many people have paid Hanako much heed since the darkness hides her scarring well. Ugh. So, we're in the city. Any ideas on what to do, or... Akira beams a smile. Something tells me that she's the one who's making this particular decision, even if her sister may have proposed the outing in the first place. You'll see. Just follow us. I nod and try my best to stifle a grimace. After what happened during Hanako's birthday party, I don't trust Akira's judgment all that much. You know what? That's fair. We keep walking, and I notice that we're passing more and more cafes, restaurants, and other eateries. Every once in a while, a drunken man in a suit comes out of a bar, usually being supported by another. But for the most part, the customers around this part of the city look young and fashionable, and, that's obviously the best thing to be. Different kinds of music come and go as we pass by each business. The discord created by the overlap should be grating, but it reminds me so strongly of the times I spent in the city with my old friends that I don't mind. Hanako and I have started to drift a little apart from Lily and Akira. That comes to a stop when I hear a soft thud from behind me. Sorry. That is a nice, smooth, jazzy tone. By the time she rights herself from her apologetic bow, the middle-aged businessman she bumped into is walking away after mumbling a half-hearted apology. Hanako looks a little put off by the experience, and as she quickly skips ahead to match my pace, I notice her head hanging low once more. She probably bumped into him because she was looking downwards and not where she was going. Hanako, I'm just going to warn you right here and now, you got to stop hanging your head low because you're going to have massive head and neck pain for the rest of your life if you don't do that. Trust me, I did that during all of high school and I am paying for it even to this very moment. Ow. Ugh. I step to the side a little and put one hand on her far shoulder, drawing her close. Sal? It's okay. You can walk closer to me if you want. Hanako hesitates, but eventually nods in assent. After a couple of times, when I thought we'd arrived at Akira's destination, we reach our target. By now, we're below the elevated walkways and past the most garish and brightly lit places. I'm a bit surprised. The average age of those around us is distinctly older, and the smell of cigarette smoke is pretty thick and exactly as stanky and as noxious as you would imagine it would be. The area is far from seedy, though, and it's a little amusing to see Lily's reaction to the smell of the smoke. While it's masked by the low talking of those around us, jazz music can be heard emanating from inside. Looking up at the dimly lit sign, it becomes obvious why. A jazz club? I have to admit, this isn't what I expected. Lily gives an amused snort and a smile. Doesn't look the type to snort. Somehow I feel like I should have known it, Akira. As we talk outside, I notice more and more odd sideways glances directed our way. People are awkwardly catching themselves staring and looking away, but that just makes it more obvious. I'd noticed this occasionally when we were walking, but it's more pronounced now. Never experienced anything like that in my life. An average-looking Japanese teenage guy, just a little taller than normal, isn't the type to draw attention without making an effort. Hey, come on. Just because you're teenagers doesn't mean you can't have taste, right? Oh, well, I don't really mind the music, if that's what you mean. I don't mind it either. He said a taste, so if it's drinking again, I don't feel like that's a good idea. She's only just managed to force the words out. It contrasts heavily to when we're alone in Yamako, and it disappoints me a little that she's so highly strung for what's supposed to be a good time out in the town. It's hard to read Hanako's face as she keeps looking downwards. It's a little wonder if she doesn't often come out of the city because of this, and it makes me a little thankful that my own scarring is easily hidden. Lily has a similar way of attracting people's gazes, but the reason for it is clearly different. She hardly looks like a native. And the same could be said for her sister. That much is far more noticeable than her blindness from a distance. Yeah, the bright blonde hair just isn't usually something you see too often in Japan. She may not be able to see this for herself, but I have little doubt she can hear the odd whispered phrase from people who think they're out of earshot. Be that as it may, she doesn't seem to show any sign of either annoyance or pleasure at the attention. Mere indifference! Akira is still as confident as ever, though. Flashing a smile, she strides in with Lily by her side and the two of us following behind. I'd expected my eyes to need adjusting to the light inside, but it's not much brighter than outside. The music we heard is clearer now, mixed in with the sound of glasses moving on the tables and counter, and the husky chatter of the patrons. Looking to my right reveals the music source, a jazz group playing beyond some tables. Do you think they have a saxophone? The patrons seem to be mostly men, and though there's a handful of women, nobody looks under 30, aside from us, of course. Feels a little like we stepped into the 1920s, and the atmosphere is quite agreeable. I'm not completely comfortable simply because of my age, but were I older, I probably would feel quite at home. Hanako seems a bit more relaxed now, probably due to nobody looking at her. Nobody talking between themselves, drinking, or watching the band. Or everybody is doing that, rather. That makes more sense. Akira casually takes a seat at the counter without even glancing around. She probably came here before. More than most likely, otherwise how would you know how to get here? Lily retracts her cane, feeling at the bar stool on the edge of the counter before taking a seat beside her sister. The bartender takes a brief, bleak break. Damn it, why am I having so much trouble? From polishing a glass to watch her before putting it down and coming over. Good evening, ladies. What'll it be? Just a scotch, thanks. Lily? May I have a glass? Whoa. Hello. Of what? Of jam. Ah. Yeah. A black suited elbow hits her side sharply. Orange juice, please. No problem. Coming right up. The bartender starts to pour the drinks. A couple of seconds pass before Akira suddenly remembers that Hanako and I are indeed here and turns around to us. You two want anything, or are you just gonna stand there? Hanako seems to be getting a bit restless. No matter where we're going to seat ourselves, there's going to be people right next to her, and I don't think she looks convincingly older than 20, unlike Lily. Looking around, there's a game section to our right. A couple of billiards tables can be seen in the corner, and nobody's using them either. I glanced to Hanako, about to ask her if she'd like to play, but she's already looking longingly in the same direction. Maybe it says something that we can get by with so few words nowadays. We'll go play pool over there. Akira leans back to see past me before shrugging and sitting back up. Seems like you'll have to put up with only me for company. How unfortunate. Have fun, you two. We turn and set off for the abandoned corner, with Hanako taking the lead. The prospect of a nice quiet game away from everyone else makes her walk noticeably faster. Her eyes stay firmly fixed on her prize. Neat! I've played billiards before. I'm terrible at it. The table's full size and well lit despite the surrounding darkness. Thanks to the bright overhead lights. A huge painting of something covers the walls. There aren't many people milling about this corner of the club, and I can see Hanako becoming a little less tense as a result. Always a good thing, as you might imagine. You know how to play? I'm going to say maybe. I'm no expert, but yeah, I do. Then, eight ball? Sure. Hanako gets the chalk and 2 cues from a set of hooks against one of the walls, while I fetch the balls from the table and pockets and rack from a shelf underneath. Oi, she patiently waits as I get the table set up. After slotting the final ball into the rack and doing some last adjustments, I end up having to fight my perfectionist urges in getting the bottom row of balls exactly perpendicular with the edges. With the balls arranged and ready for play, I step back and take my cue from her outstretched arm. I carry out a quick inspection of the tip before I'm satisfied that it's in good condition. It will not betray me this day. So, you've played before? Once or twice. I just kind of know the rules. The air between us feels a little awkward. She's still pretty nervous. Understandably, given that we're in public. Eventually, the silence becomes too much even for Hanako, and she begins to quietly stammer. Who'll break? I think for a moment before reaching into my pocket and drawing a coin. I'll take heads, you're tails. After a nod of agreement from Hanako, I flick the coin up in the air and catch it and flip it over onto the back of my left hand. Looks like that's you that gets to break. Oh, look at that! Hanako nods again before taking up her position at the end of the table. She's not usually this quiet around me, but I'm not wholly sure if it's because of the tidbit of information about her past that slipped out moments ago. The cue comes back in a practiced gesture before smacking dead into the center of the cue ball with a thud. The white ball skates across the smooth green expanse before smashing into the carefully arranged balls at the other end. Balls skitter across the table at high speed. The break was good, with the balls being nicely distributed around the table. My eyes are already flicking from one to the other to pick out the easiest candidate to pocket. Hanako retreats from the side and I take my shot. Well done. It's only after Hanako says this that I realize the ball I was shooting at was sunk. I look at her and notice a small smile on her face. It's nice how playing games seems to loosen her up a little. Guess I'm stripes then. I take a step back and let her take the next shot, but she doesn't advance to the table. Rather, she looks down a little and rubs her arm. But now I can identify this as one of her gestures that means she wants to say something, but isn't sure enough of herself to do it. What's up? It's just, you had a nice smile. Do you like playing this? I sigh and lean back against the table. I like playing, yeah. I think I'm smiling because it's really nostalgic, though. Hanako tilts her head quizzically. She is perplexed by this nonsense. What you on about? Me and my friends used to play pool in the game centers near where we lived pretty often, and at night too. Wouldn't your parents? My parents both work, so they didn't mind me not being in the house. I stayed on top of schoolwork pretty easily as well, so there was plenty of time to do other stuff at night. Our conversation dies down with Hanako's timidity? I'm not even sure. Getting the better of her. In response, I get off the table and let her take her turn shooting. There aren't many solids in easy position, so Hanako bends down and takes a while to line herself up properly. Hanako's expression is the same as when we play chess. A relaxed but focused concentration. Athletes sometimes talk about getting into a zone where nothing unnecessary enters their mind. I wonder if that's something she can do. I mean, I would hope. Her posture is good. Better than mine, to be sure. It's very close to a textbook's method of playing, whereas I tend to contort myself into whatever position I feel is most natural for the shot I'm taking. She lines up the cue. The cue comes back and she does a couple of practice movements to make sure she's lined up correctly. Hanako takes games so seriously. It's the only real hobby I know she has outside of reading. Feels good to be able to share this kind of experience with her. She takes the shot after careful consideration, and the cue ball zooms off towards a ball sitting at a slightly awkward angle near a corner. Hanako's careful preparation pays off as the cue ball hits and sends the ball rolling towards the corner pocket. For a moment, it looks like it'll stop just on the lip of the hole, but it eventually tilts just enough to drop in. Hey, that was a hard shot. If you can pull that off, I don't think I have much hope. I'm not that good. It's not just the shot, though. Even when lining it up, you looked really serious. You're like this with chess, too. The praise makes her a little flustered. She gets the cue against the table and stands turning to me. I just like those kinds of things. Her fingers are twisting and turning tightly. When I was in the orphanage, oh boy, I just kept doing the things I liked before. If I played games with the others, that was enough for the helpers there, so I never thought about it that way. Staff in an orphanage would naturally want to have everyone socialize at least a little. If it's okay for me to ask, what was it like for you at the orphanage? Why do you want to know? I've touched a nerve, but the fact that she responded at all shows that at least there's a chance she'll answer my question. Before, she likely would have just shrunk away from it without a word. I'll tell you, but? Could you tell me who, what Wanako is? A Wanako? Oh, the letter. I wonder how long she's been waiting for the right opportunity to ask me this. I'm surprised, but don't hesitate. Sharing information is naturally a matter of give and take. I get the overwhelming impression that Hanako might fancy Hisao just a wee bit and might be wondering, well, he got a letter and that's a girl's name. What are my chances here? I feel like that might be her mindscape here. She's someone I used to like. Her nervousness subsided, at least for the time it took to ask. Her curiosity is getting the better of her, and I feel a bit uncomfortable to be questioned on this, of all matters. There's no way I can spill out all my feelings about Wanako here. I don't even know myself what my feelings regarding her are, even after talking to Yuko earlier and wanted to avoid the subject around Hanako. Hanako doesn't look overly satisfied with the awkward ending to the discussion, but thinks better of continuing it. She was only just managing to ask me in the first place without knowing that I wouldn't want to talk about it. I move to finally take my own shot. The lack of talking between us is filled by the chatter of the other patrons and the band at the other end of the club. Spying a shot that doesn't look too difficult, I try and shoot for it. The cue ball taps the ball to the trajectory is about right, but I put in too much power. It grazes the corner of the hole and moves off the side, just skirting the pocket. I grit my teeth a little. I was pretty good at this game, but it's frustrating to have deteriorated so much. I step back and let Hanako take her turn, glancing towards the counter where Lily and Akira are sitting. They're talking busily between themselves and seem to be having a good time. I turn back to Hanako as she takes her shot. With the same face as before, she lines herself up and sharply pushes the cue. Just as before, she sinks the ball she was aiming for. It drops into the side pocket and more cleanly than the last, though. It looks as if she's getting a bit more into the groove of the game, because that's just how the Hanako do. You might be amazed at what she's capable of. Nicely done. She hesitates for a moment and begins to address me without turning her head. The orphanage was nice. It felt a bit like Yamaku does, and the staff was really kind. But as the years went on, I realized something. I was different. Feels strange to hear her speak so candidly about herself. candidly. She's audibly forcing the words out. It reminds me of when she insisted that she tell me about the fire. Hanako must feel that she has to tell me of such things if I'm willing to tell her about my own past. Her grip on the cue tightens as she continues to speak. Most of the children there were up for adoption, just like I was. But unlike me, they gradually left, one by one. By the time I went to Yamaku, I was among the oldest children there. For a while, I helped with some of the younger children, but eventually... I lay a hand on her shoulder. She's forcing herself by now. It's okay. She looks mildly surprised for a moment, but then nods before sitting down her cue and turning towards me. Do you really think so? Yeah, I think so. Even while Lily's away, I'll be around to protect you, right? Hanako looks at me for a long time, and I'm taken a bit off guard. Her expression hasn't changed from before, but still somewhat maudlin? And silences between us aren't unusual. I think it's the fact that she's holding such prolonged eye contact that makes us feel a bit odd. It feels as if she's judging me. It's a very strange, vaguely uncomfortable feeling. Huh. Okay. That sounds like something that I should be making note of. Hanako? Yeah, I understand. Thank you. She smiles and looks away a little, but it feels stilted. Hanako isn't very good at faking emotions, and this is no exception. Okay, I don't think that she likes that. I move to the table and take my turn to try and distract myself, but it doesn't seem to work. Does she think I'm not up to the task of helping her? Is she disappointed in me? I don't think it's that. I feel like she might not like the idea of needing to be protected. That's my impression, at least. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know. It's, in my personal opinion, as somebody who never went anything quite like what she went through, I can honestly tell you that sometimes, you know, compassion is good, but, you know, that can easily bridge over to pity pretty easily, and I don't think anybody on Earth really likes being pitied. I'm probably overthinking this. While her silences are just an accepted fact of life by now, sometimes I do wish she'd speak more. With a thud, I send the white sphere careening down the table into my target. Hanako sees what's happening just as I do. The ball hits hard with the striped ball I intended to sink, veering off towards the 8-ball. Sure enough, as both Hanako and I look on and bite our lips, they connect and the black ball rolls leisurely into a corner pocket. All I can do is sigh. Looks like Hanako is smiling again, though, so maybe it wasn't for naught. That was an awful shot. You win. Seems I'm getting pretty rusty after all this time. Hanako bends down and begins to shoot the remaining balls into the closest pockets. I almost ask if we could play another game, but a quick check on my watch confirms that the night is getting pretty late. Lily and Akira appear to still be drinking at the counter. Seems like we'll have to drag them away. Hisao? I turn back to Hanako, who's still looking over the pool table shooting balls. Her voice sounds different from before. I'm here for you as well. I suddenly find myself blushing. It's only natural that she'd respond this way, given what I said earlier, but it's still a shock to actually hear it. Just what is my relationship with this girl? I want to protect her, to make her happy. I'm not really sure that it's something like love, but I don't think these are the same kinds of feelings I have for Lily either. I feel sorry for her, having gone through so much in her life. Her parents died in a house fire, and she lived in an orphanage for much of her childhood. Did I completely forget the point when it was absolutely confirmed that she was an orphan? I can't even imagine that kind of life. But I feel like there's so little I can do for her, especially now that Lily is going to be leaving the country. For like 2 weeks! Hanako and I finish tidying up the tables and cues and pick up Lily and Akira on our way out of the club. It feels like something changed between Hanako and me. I can't quite place what it is, but Hanako's acting differently now. I feel like we're further apart, if anything. So, you enjoy yourselves? Hanako and I both nod and agree. The game was good, and we both did learn more about each other, so it's an honest answer. Lily appears to be a little distracted. Worried about the trip, Lily? She pauses before sighing and smiling weakly. A little. It means quite a bit. The comment earns her a clap on the shoulder from her sister. Hanako smiles back, too. You'll be okay, Lily. I hope you can enjoy your time over there. Thank you, Hanako. I'll try to. It'll be nice to be back with my family. After all, no matter for how brief a time it may be. With that, the four of us begin the walk back to the car park where Akira's car is. We continue to talk between ourselves, but it's mostly just small talk. Fascinating! Alright, this stuff is definitely important. Very, very important. Right then, are you taking the bus, Lily? Lily motions to a large suitcase standing beside her. I'll have to take this with me, so I've booked a taxi. It'll meet us at the school gates in about 5 minutes. I see. Lily reaches down and feels out the handle of her suitcase. Its weight causes her some difficulty, so I quickly offer to take it myself. That is awfully kind of you, Hisao. She has no qualms about accepting, and I end up picking it up. It's not what I'd call light, but it's not exactly heavy either. I don't think I'll have too much trouble carrying it. Oh, thank you then. We should hurry, though. If the taxi leaves, then it'll take quite a while to book a new one. Are you ready, Hanako? Yeah, let's go. We rush to the gate as fast as we can, only to find that the taxi is yet to arrive. Nothing like a little bit of exercise in the morning. The nurse told me that I should be doing that. I think he probably had other things in mind, Hisao, and probably with more regularity. Do you intend to be helping people with their luggage every day? I guess not. Looks like we've got a bit to wait anyway. How long should we wait before the taxi before calling them again? I'd say another 10 minutes, but they've never let me down before. There's probably just a little traffic. Okay then. So, how long is the flight to Scotland? About 16 hours. Ugh, that sounds painful. If I remember correctly. It's a bit hard to tell with the changing time zones. So long. It's now that I realize Hanako's been unusually quiet, even for her. She doesn't handle stress well, so she's looking really uptight. Yeah, I can't imagine being on a plane for that long. I've only ever flown on a short family holiday up north, so it really is quite hard to fathom. Yeah, I feel like I've only been ever able to go like maybe 3-4 states away from where I currently am. So that's like, I don't know, at most maybe like a 3 or 4 hour flight. And that's already incredibly painful. If Hanako spent so much of her childhood at an orphanage, she's probably traveled very little, let alone flown. It's not too bad. I'll spend most of it either asleep or catching up on my English. I hardly use that here, so I need to refamiliarize myself with it a little. Always funny whenever I hear lines like that. Will your accent be a problem? I wouldn't worry about that too much. It may be an issue initially, but I should be fine once I get used to it. We all move to sit down on the small bench beside the school gate in silence. Strangely enough, even though I know that Lily is going away, I can't think of anything to say to her. Lily is a reliable person, so it might be because she isn't the one that I'm thinking of most. Lily might not be able to see it, but Hanako's chewing her fingernails nervously. I move to talk to her, but can hear an engine straining up the hill before I get the chance. Ah, I think the taxi is on its way. Well spotted, Hisao. I only just heard it as well. A small wave of pride washes over me. To have noticed something at the same time as Lily must mean that I'm becoming more aware of my surroundings. Anyway, we won't have to call the taxi company, nor worry about missing Lily's plane. Once the taxi stops where we're standing, the driver rolls down a window and leans over. After confirming that yes, Lily is the same Lily Sato that booked the trip, we sort out her luggage. The driver opens the trunk of the taxi and takes Lily's suitcase, with Lily climbing into the back seat as he loads it into the trunk and slams it shut. After getting back into his seat and shutting the doors, he waits for us to say our farewells. Have a safe trip, Lily. Take care of yourself. Hanako looks understandably downcast, and that much is obvious even in her voice. Of course I will. I'll be back before long, don't worry. There will still be another person here for you too. Won't there, Hisao? Yeah, of course. I turn and smile to Hanako, putting my hand on her shoulder. She only manages to keep eye contact with me for a couple of seconds, her cheeks red all the while before turning back to Lily. See you, Lily. Goodbye. Lily gives her farewells to the both of us with a fair measure of reluctance. Without further ado, the driver starts the engine once more and they begin the journey down the hill and towards the airport. And I get the overwhelming impression that things are gonna probably start speeding up a bit now. The two of us stand at the gates for a long time, even after they disappeared from sight, not really knowing what to do. So, what do you want to do? I don't know. Huh. Considering how late into the story I feel like we are, I get the overwhelming impression that this is an important decision. On the other hand, I feel as if almost because I'm aware of the fact that this game has bad endings now, that, that I might be overthinking things now. Oh boy. What would be the right call here? I mean, we're already dressed, and I don't see why it could go poorly, but maybe it won't. Do you want to go into the city? We're already outside the gates. The bus stop, standing by the school gates like a mute sentinel, puts a strange idea in my mind. Want to head into town and look for a bookshop or something? We have the rest of the day free. It's a long shot, as Hanako doesn't like going into the city, and I count the fact that we managed to get her out there even when it was so dark as a small miracle, but I genuinely want to spend more time with her. Oh, do you think... Oh, I think you want to call it a day would mean not spending time together. I think I just... Oh, okay, then I think I might have made the right call. Anyway, she's likely just to refuse and go back to... Okay. Really? Really? Let's go. I can't work out why Hanako has decided to agree with me, but I'm not about to ask her to change her mind. Merriment ensues! Stepping off the bus, I immediately notice that a lot of people are around us. In hindsight, it should have been obvious. Of course, lots of people will be downtown on a Saturday afternoon. Hanako retreats close to my side, and I can feel her hand clutching my arm tightly. Her body is held against mine, and her head is bowed so low that her hat hides most of her scarring. So, where shall we go? A bookshop? Hanako's present and my other general living expenses have pretty much drained my budget, but I should be able to afford a few books. There's something I try to reserve a few funds for anyway. For a second, I think Hanako didn't hear me, but then I looked to my side and noticed her nodding almost imperceptibly. Okay. Do you know of one? Actually, I do. We passed a few wherein Lily and I were looking for your presence. Hanako's expression clouds a fraction. I've got to remember to stop bringing up her birthday. You both spent a lot of time? Or maybe I misjudged the situation. Or it's a little bit of both. I say, no, it was easy. We were in and out. We didn't spend a lot of time. No problems. I wanted to make sure we got the right present after all. Hanako smiles and blushes a bit. It's a small treasure when she does. I'm just throwing this out there, though. For somebody who seems to not be sure whether or not he's in love or not, I feel like he very much is. Anyway, there should be a bookshop just up ahead. Do you want to check it out? Sure. The crowd starts to build as we head towards the bookshop along the raised walkways. Hanako latches her other arm onto me as well, making our progress a little slower. As we walk, the sound of the traffic makes me think of a possible distraction for her. I was wondering, Hanako, have you thought yet about when you're going to learn to drive? Driving? Yeah, you're kind of lucky in a way. There aren't a whole lot of students in Yamaku that are allowed to drive. It's not the best topic of a conversation, but I want to try and distract Hanako from the situation. She's really high-strung right now. Then again, all I've really done is make her feel awkward, since she's probably never thought about it. I wish I hadn't said anything. Before long, we are before one of the bookshops Lily and I passed during our search. What kind of self-respecting bookshop closes on Saturdays? Bookshops don't make much money anymore because of the internet. Maybe they just had to close over weekends. She seems pretty knowledgeable about technology. I guess it's a pursuit that would lend itself well to someone who enjoys solitude. Huh. I guess that makes sense. It's easier to find books online. Anyway, looks like this idea is shot. Anything else you'd like to do? Yeah, if it's not a bother, could you show me where you bought my present? Sure, not a problem. It's not far from here. One small jaunt over. I head off in the direction of the store, only half sure of its exact location. I don't want to repeat it the last time, spending half the day walking around aimlessly. Here we are. Othello's Antiques. It's small. Well, yeah, it took Lily and me some time to find it. Can we go in? I don't see why not. It's open. Hanako pushes through the door and enters before me. Once again, the store is empty save for the store owner. His face drops a little when he sees me. Oh, you're not here for a return, are you? Wait, that's not the girl you had with you last time. No, we're not here to return anything. We were just in town and wanted to have another look in here. The store owner considers this for quite a long time. I guess he's not used to high school students coming to his shop on a regular basis. That's fair. Might this be the friend you bought gifts for? That's right. They were presents for her. The store owner turns to Hanako, who freezes on the spot like a deer caught in the headlights. He moves to address her, but stops before doing so, looking a little taken aback. He catches himself staring and looks to the side, addressing us indirectly. His expression is awkward and tense, as in his entire body. I want to be mad at him, but I know full well that I had the same instinctive reaction when I first saw her. First surprise, then curiosity, then an awkward look away as I dealt with what I'd seen. Hanako looks less panicked than before, but I think the feeling she's giving off now is even worse. It's not anger, nor annoyance. If anything, it's one of apology. You're lucky there, young lady, to have friends that care about you as much as they do. Thank you. If I hadn't spent so much time with Hanako, I wouldn't even have realized that she said anything. Then again, the store owner's mumble was hardly clear either, thanks in part to being directed away from us. Hanako strikes out into the store, gazing in wonder at the various items on display. She finds the doll section and spends lingering minutes studying each and every one. Which a side of Hanako I've only barely been introduced to. I was astonished when Lily said she liked dolls, and even more so to find her collection sitting on her dresser. She looks a little better now, that she's distracted and out of the store owner's sight, but I'm still quite put off by the whole experience. I might have my own problems, but I've never had strangers react to me like that. As if I was something completely alien to them. Poor gal. This is a nice shop. Yeah, it's not what I expected. You want to buy something? I didn't bring any money. We can always come again. Now that I know where to find it, that is. We can? Of course. We can come here as often as you like. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. I almost forgot where this place was. I don't really think either of us completely believes in what we're saying, but rather we're just repeating what we think we should say. Can we go back to the school now? Sure thing. Let's go. All right, well, nothing terrible seems to have taken place, so I feel as if I haven't made a horrible decision. As we leave for the bus stop, I see the store owner peek through the curtain at the back of the shop. Not really sure what that glance he gives to her says. Feels a bit weird, and the fact that Hanako didn't see it is both a relief and a bit frustrating. Hanako and I stop walking once we reach the concrete area between the dormitory buildings. There was barely a word said between us on the way back from the city. Well then, goodbye. Want to have some tea or something? Or a game? Hanako shakes her head embarrassedly. I'm tired. Maybe later? I've got homework. She sounds a little depressed. Hanako obviously does want to do more, but I suppose she she would have a bit of schoolwork to catch up on. She's missed a few days of lessons. Homework. Thanks for reminding me. I got a stack to do as well. I guess I'll see you tomorrow. See you, Hisao. Before I could say goodbye, Hanako has turned and begun walking towards the entrance to the female dormitory building. I look at the door she disappears through for a bit before going off towards my own dorms. Today was a tiring day. Well, that's a interesting picture. Act 4 is the final act, so yeah. Man, I want to say that we on the Emmy path, I feel like we became a couple in the second act. I assume that's what's going to happen here, but I guess the game might throw a curveball. It could just stay platonic, I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out soon enough. I woke up, took my pills, had a nice shower, quickly slipped on my uniform, made a tasty breakfast, grabbed my bag, and headed off as per my usual daily routine. It was only after arriving in class that the normality of the day was thrown off. After taking my seat, I watched my classmates trickle into the room over the next hour, until every empty seat was eventually taken, other than Hanako's. I can never get used to the idea that she doesn't show up to class every now and again. Feels all the more worrying now as well, given that Lily's left. As Muto continues to drone on, I find my gaze flicking every so often over to her seat, as if she might appear there any moment now. Nobody else seems to care at all about her absence, but they have little reason to. Hanako being absent from class, after all, is perfectly normal, or at least it was. Her attendance hasn't been all that bad from what I've seen in my time here, but it was apparently much more spotty beforehand. It's also an ominous time for her to be gone. It's the day before her birth... Wait, what? It's the day before her birthday and my suspicions are starting to rise? Wait, what? Hanako missing? And my suspicions are starting to rise after the breakdown she had in class when it was mentioned. An increasing amount of thoughts is taken up by how I can help her, but in the end I feel like I can't do anything. I'm sorry, I was just confused by what that meant. The bell heralding the beginning of lunchtime rings out, shaking me out of my thoughts. A collective sigh of relief can be heard from the class, though Muto looks quite put off. He dislikes being interrupted in the middle of his exciting lectures, after all. Just when I'm wondering what I should do on lunch break, given that Hanako and Lily aren't here, the solution presents itself. The return of the 2-0! Afternoon, Hichan! Afternoon, Misha. Shizun. You both look as bright as ever. Shichan wants to know if you'd like to have lunch with us today. Sure, it'll be good to have some company. The cafeteria hums with activity, much like my old schools did. Yamaku is different, though, in how strangely civilized the lunchtime rush is. What one would expect to be an unruly mob chomping at the bit to get to the serving area is, rather, a neat and organized line. What a novel concept! Civility! There's a small amount of jostling, and people's heads are often craning around to check out what's happening up ahead, but it's pretty subdued. This is due, no doubt, to the very serious rules regarding such matters in the school. The same strict discipline is observed when students move in the hallways or come to and from their dormitories on the school gate. You gotta be careful. You never know what you're gonna run into. While the reasons for it may be slightly off-putting, I've come to quite like this sense of order that's enforced in the school. I didn't really like being told by Shizune and Misha to get their lunches, though I feel a little used as I take a seat at the table where they're sitting, plunking their food down in front of them. Sweet bread and strawberry milk for Misha, a bowl of ramen and juice for Shizune. I heard a sigh of relief as I put it all down after the significant difficulty I had carrying it all in addition to my own lunch. Thank you! Misha claps her hands together before popping open the wrapper and digging into her bread ravenously. Shizune simply gives an appreciative nod before giving her steaming ramen a stir and blowing on it a little to cool it down. I open my own lunch, another packet of sweet bread, and take a bite before washing it down with some juice. The bread is very sweet, so much so that I end up forcing myself to stomach it just to get the experience over with. Midway through, I decide to take a break from the difficult task and ask what's on my mind. So, I'm guessing you two had a reason to drag me down here. You two seem to always have an ulterior motive after all. What are you saying, Her mouth is full of sweetbread as she speaks. It's a pretty unpleasant sight. Shizune looks a little grossed out before going back to eating her ramen. I wait until Misha swallows what she has in her mouth before speaking again. You're not buttering me up to make me work with you after school? Nope. Not trying to extract information from me that I might not want to give? Nuh-uh. Fine, you win. I guess you just wanted to eat lunch with someone as intelligent and handsome as me then. That's it, Hichan. You got it. Shizune looks unimpressed as Misha finishes signing her conversation and sucks in the last of long noodles as she signs her own thoughts. Hichan says you shouldn't be so suspicious of us. She's just doing her duty as a class representative after all. How is she, are you doing that? As much as I hate to admit it, it looks as if I have some trouble communicating with Shizune. It should be a simple matter of keeping eye contact with her and addressing Shizune instead of Misha in my speech, but when somebody else is doing the talking for her, it's a surprisingly difficult task. It's the class representative's job to ensure everybody's doing all right in class, isn't it? Not really, no. Wait, how's making me get your food ensuring that I'll go well in class? Shizune huffs and adjusts her glasses disapprovingly. So this is the thanks we get for giving you companionship during lunchtime. That's a total dodge of the question. Wait, hang on. How did you know that Lily's away and Hanako is absent, and since those two are the only people you hang around with, you also made it kind of obvious to see. Ouch. Aw, these two are actually really nice. I may well have done so, but she didn't have to rub it in. Maybe this is payback for before. Right, well, thanks. I appreciate it. And that isn't sarcasm. The two nod, and we get back to finishing our meals. Feels a little embarrassing to be accompanied, just because they noticed I was lonely, but it isn't as if they're strangers either. It isn't long before I finish the last of my bread and start on the last of my juice, and as I do, I find my mind wandering back to what I'd been thinking about before the two interrupted my train of thought. Feels like I'm the only one in the class that so much as acknowledges Hanako not being there. It felt like this the other time she skipped class, but now it's even more acutely annoying. Does nobody care if she's happy or not? Have they just written off any possibility of helping to make her better? Even Muto doesn't try to keep her in class, and I'm still not wholly convinced of it by his reasoning. Hey, Chan, is your juice past its expiry date? What? You were pulling a weird face like this. As if it were needed, Misha mimics my own expression. Her exaggeration makes me grimace, though Shizune at least takes some amusement from it. I was just thinking about Hanako. Oh? Misha's interest is piqued, and so is Shizune's, once my words are interpreted for her. I'm just worried about her being absent so often, especially now, what with her birthday coming around. That's what I was confused by. I thought we already... Oh, no, that's right, we did it earlier, because Lily was gonna leave. Okay, sorry, I am so sorry that confused me. It's like I thought we were past that. We clearly were not. The memories of the incident in class are still fresh in their minds. Their faces alone are telling me that much. Do you know anything about Hanako? Anything that might help? Misha shrugs and looks to Shizune, who mulls on this for a while. The only people she's ever talked to for more than a sentence or two are you and Lily. Shizune may not be able to convey Lily's name in a derisive tone of speech, but I feel as if it comes through in her sign language. The effect is lost, however, after Misha's interpretation. There are a couple of things we know about Hanako as student council members, thanks to the records that pass through our hands. We can't say anything about what's in them. And you know what? That's perfectly understandable and fair. Yeah, okay. Like, yeah, I'm not even gonna try and ask for you to do that. It sounds a lot like the nurse's patient confidentiality. Every time I find someone that knows something about Hanako's past, it turns out being a dead end. Mostly due to the fact that it would be massively uncool to get people, you know, who basically have information that they're sworn to secrecy to not give away to people, and then try to get them to give it away anyway. Yeah, that's not gonna work. The only way I'll ever find out is by asking her. I don't know if she'll let me know such things. But if it's for her sake, I have to at least try. Oh boy. Don't worry about it, Hee-chan. It happens every year, after all. It doesn't remove any sense of worry at all. I still will feel a little at fault for what happened in class, but this feels like it goes further, even without their confirmation of the fact. Misha notes my troubled expression, her unusual happy and reassuring face dropping. Everyone has problems they have to deal with, right, Hee-chan? Yeah, I just wish I could help Hanako more with hers. With that, the conversation trails off on a depressing note. Eventually, Misha manages to pick the mood back up through her usual bright and bubbly antics, but my mind remains focused on Hanako. I'll go check on her later.